a prominent cultural icon in Japan, and I don't know the genesis of that culturally, but I do know a little bit about how it came into our lineage through the work that Chosen Roshi did as a pediatrician. I'll begin sharing that. So we're coming out of a week-long retreat, what we call the Workaday Sesshin, which means this previous week we had morning sitting periods, evening sitting periods as well, and then a full day meditation retreat yesterday, on Saturday. And many of the talks and teachings were themed around Jizo Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva, awakened being. And the archetype of the Bodhisattva is one who has vowed to dedicate their life for the welfare of all sentient beings. You might say that a Bodhisattva is analogous to a saint in some way. And one particular quality that is attributed to Jizo Bodhisattva is the quality of fearlessness and the quality of the willingness to navigate the entirety of the hell realms towards the end of liberating all those who are suffering therein. So we spent some time talking about the hell realms during Sesshin and our closing circle this morning. And it's important to name that because having spent real professional time working in the hell realms, Chosen really felt like something unique was needed in order to deal with the grief that she was carrying after years and years of working very intimately in child abuse. So she was aware of a ceremony that existed in the Zen tradition, already existed in the United States and had been brought over from Japan, called the Kashitagarbha ceremony. Kashitagarbha is Sanskrit, Jizo is Japanese. And that particular ceremony is actually different. It is not what we're going to be doing tonight, but it does give what we're doing tonight context. And I will describe to you that ceremony some, because it was a ceremony that was done biannually at Great Vow Zen Monastery, a residential Zen monastery up in northern Oregon. It was done twice a year for years. It appears that is no longer the case. I think just as Chosen is getting older, less energy is going into that, and I don't know if someone else has really taken that on. It's a very large responsibility to take on, large as in large in heart, because the ceremony is for those in grief over their loved ones who have died. And once a year, the ceremony is specifically for children who have died, and then the other ceremony is for anyone who has died. The one for children in particular is set aside for that purpose because of the particular suffering unique to that experience of losing a child. The ceremony is largely a space that's held in silence, and people are invited to come in, and Chosen offers a little cultural background about Jizo Bodhisattva as an icon in Japan. And we have one Sangha member in our room today who just got back from traveling around Japan and probably saw many Jizo as well while he was there. Because Jizo is present at intersections, it's present at shrines. And in my very short time I spent in Japan, what I was told was true. And you would see little items of clothing that villagers had made and put on Jizo, and evidence of people having come to pray to Jizo. And then people are invited to make some token for their loved one. Usually the token includes a lot of red, but essentially any kind of craft they desire, and then they can go out to the memorial garden, place it. Chosen does a memorial ceremony out there. And then anyone who was present for that ceremony is invited in an open-ended way to return to that garden anytime, unannounced, whenever they need, period. And that was an invitation that, as a resident, I always felt supremely grateful for, and felt a lot of joy whenever I would see people arrive that I didn't know, that clearly were making their way to the memorial garden, spent some time there and then left. It was very, very appropriate that was made available to them. I'm going to share with you Chosen's words. So we personally very well may have lived through hell realms, either in our circumstances or in our minds. And that is important to acknowledge. And at the same time, also recognize that culturally, what we basically live in is a heavenly realm. We literally defecate in potable water. And there are parts in the world where that would be profoundly offensive. But that does not change the fact that individuals really have experienced hell. And part of Chosen's work was really going into hell realms in the United States. In 1993, 32 child abuse deaths occurred in Oregon. I had known most of these children. I had examined their limp, pale bodies in the pediatric intensive care unit. I had gently run my fingers through soft hair, turned back ear folds, opened unresisting mouths and eyelids looking for subtle bruises. I had turned their bodies over, careful not to pull out tubes that pumped air into their lungs and infused intravenous fluid into their veins. I had spoken as gently as I could to frightened and aggressive parents whom I knew had smashed, shaken, and beaten these infants, and also to the nurses who were angry at these parents. When the nurses were busy and no one was looking, I held each baby's hand for a moment to pray for its transition out of suffering and into peace. I had arranged for goodbyes to be said, last kisses given. Then their bodies still warm and only appearing to breathe because of the respirator inflating their lungs. They were taken away to surgery. Finally, those once warm and living bodies, now cold and lifeless, were transported to the morgue. Their organs, now in insulated boxes, were carried off into dark skies to be transplanted into other little bodies thousands of miles away, donating the organs. Bodies from whom life was ebbing slowly, washed over by parents now filled with hope that their child might live. I attended many of these autopsies. I carefully photographed their bruises, cigarette burns, rib fractures, dark burgundy brain hemorrhages. I pried open cold lips and genitalia to swab for semen. I meticulously labeled film and swabs so lawyers could not prevent valuable evidence from being presented in upcoming trials. One part of me did all this with clinical efficiency, talking with the medical examiner and detectives about likely mechanisms of injury. Yet another part of my mind worked hard not to think of the horror of these children's last hours and days. Their screams for help, their cries met with kicks, curses, punches, and burns. I locked away the vivid scenes, the long bloody hair, the terrified blue eyes. I dictated reports, testified in court, and used all the tools of my medical and meditative trades to keep the images at bay. And she told me what she would do in between cases. There was a tree outside of her office window. And when one case had left the room, she would just put her eyes on the tree and let her spirit come into the tree as much as possible. And just being the tree. The stability of a tree. Something that is more stable and more enduring than this human life, until the next case came in. And for 10 years I had been successful, but finally there were simply too many. And they were all too close. There was not enough time to wipe the mind's eye clear between each battered child. I would suddenly find myself weeping in my dark car on the way home every time a soppy country western song came on the radio. I became afraid that if I began to cry, I might never stop. I had just dammed up so much. And it was then that she contacted a Dharma sister of hers in San Francisco and went to a Jizo memorial ceremony in Green Gulch, at Green Gulch Zen Center. And there, she says, I made a leaf for each child that had died. I said their names silently and willed my mind to open. I willed my mind to open its locked places and to see them. I made myself look again into the horrified eyes and the twisted mouths. Only a few people spoke during the ceremony. Only a few quiet words about the child they had come to remember. When we had finished with our garments, we made a procession to carry the statues out to the garden. And then she goes on to describe the ceremony. And so it's of course important to acknowledge the parallel levels of reality that exist, the hell realms and the heavenly realms, to acknowledge that it's all out there and always will be, and simultaneously to have gratitude for the blessings of our lives. Because with the wrong state of mind, we can create a hell realm out of a heavenly realm. And that's the least helpful thing to do. So maybe we would like to ask the question, is it the case that there will always be hell realms? The mind is infinitely creative, meaning its capacity to suffer is intrinsic in the possibilities of the mind. There will always be hell realms. The truth of limited resource, of supply and demand, is something that will never be solved. Will there always be hell realms? Viktor Frankl, author and Auschwitz survivor, said that suffering is a gas that fills to occupy the shape of its container, meaning however extreme or however minor the hell realm that we go through is, we have the ability to really let that occupy the entirety of our experience. And it's not necessary to live in that way. One more interesting quote I'll share, and this is from one of the Desert Fathers. I believe this is from Saint Anthony. In the end, the devil too cannot be said to be anything but good. For the devil ultimately is a creation of God. And that's a koan for us to walk away with, contemplating what really is the big picture of this phenomenon that we call living. So in this ceremony, we state the vows of Jizo Bodhisattva. And in our sutra, these vows are the vows that Jizo made to the Buddha when the Buddha was passing into parinirvana, or no longer being present on this world to ease the suffering of sentient beings. And in response to the Buddha's passing, Jizo Bodhisattva made vows of these 5 qualities: the quality of benevolence, determination, optimism, fearlessness, and vow. Jizo Bodhisattva made the vow of benevolence, a vow to welcome everything that comes towards me with a warm and undefended heart. The vow of determination. I vow to walk the path to enlightenment, dissolving all obstructions and never turning back. The vow of optimism. To see and nourish the seeds of awakening in everyone and everything I encounter, the vow of fearlessness, the recognition that all demons are born from ignorance, and to take refuge in the one bright mind. And the vow to gladly enter every hell realm, guiding myself and everyone I meet into liberation. And these are the vows that we'll take together as part of this ceremony. I would like to teach you a short melody that is the Jizo mantra. Jizo culturally is a patron saint protecting children, women, and travelers. Travelers, geographic travelers, travelers between realms. And the mantra is like a protecting amulet that you can use to guard the mind or the heart at any time in your life, or just to keep yourself focused. It is the mantra that I often use when I go backpacking. The words are on page 19 of the chant book. And I'll share with you a simple melody that's repeated. And there's 3 just slightly different melodic lines that will repeat over and over again. So please listen more than you think you need to. Because often what happens is people jump in a little too quickly and then others can't hear. Om ka 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 bisan bhai soaka. 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 Om ka ka. Lovely. And there's one more that I'll teach you for the ceremony. I believe it's on page 79, but would someone verify that's where the Dalai Lama's vow is found?
79 in the pink book, 83 in the yellow book.
Thank you. 79 in the pink, 83 in the yellow. And you'll see the line, for as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, so then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. It sounds like, and listen to me do this twice before you come in. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, so then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. Listen again. For as long